just beyond the next planet, just beyond the next star.
Been a hell of a run. I never thought it would come to an end.
Our brig was bigger than this.
A lot of things change in 200 years.
Here's to the next generation.
Hey, welcome back to the Sloppy Modeler. Welcome back to the Enterprise NX-01 and NX-01 Refit combined build. This is update number 4, and as you know, we've already got the NX-01 done, and now we are on to the refit. I want to bring you up to speed a little bit about current progress. First of all, I want to wish everybody a healthy coronavirus sit in, sit out, whatever you want to call it, where we are at home. And this is giving me a chance to get a little bit of modeling done, but this is not the way I wanted to free up my time. So what you see here in front of you is the secondary hull. And I know it doesn't look like much, but it is huge progress, I guess. So essentially what you're looking at here is the culmination of putting all this wiring in, and I've given myself this time, thankfully, a significant amount of headroom when it comes to the wiring for going into the base. So I've got my post ready to go into there, and then this goes up into the neck, plenty of wiring. I was running into the case where I was coming up just shy of the amount of wiring I needed on some of these projects, and so we'll talk about that here in a second. But so finally I just said enough. It doesn't cost hardly anything to go a foot versus 2 foot, and then here a foot. So we've got enough wire now for doing this. So inside of this I've got 3 LED strips that are the single length, one bulb. And I put one on this side of the hull, one on that side of the hull, and then one that's right there, all facing up, so that I could light up these windows. And for the most part, I think they do a pretty nice job, especially in the dark. But even here, I've got windows lit up. There are 2 wires going into this from the bottom, 2 leads. One lead is going to be for the blinking LEDs, and I've got the circuit for that, for the anti-collision lights. And the other one is for all the other lights. I'm not going to do any more than that, so there'll just be one switch on, just one switch to turn it on, and then one momentary switch to change out the cadence of that blinker. I'm not even going to do a separate switch to turn the blinker on and off, because I don't think it's necessary for this particular model. I can do it all in one switch. In this lighting, so the lighting would come on. Here on the top portion is the blinker that's going to go for the anti-collision in the back of the center of the hull, and then this is a really nice piece here on the bottom for that lower anti-collision light, and that'll blink, and I think that'll look fantastic. Also, I've got the blue here for the impulse crystal, and where you're seeing blue here is actually where those pylons slot into it from the top, so those will be clear, and maybe those will work. I might have to light block them when we get going here. So, but a couple of things, because I've done this wiring like this allows me to now proceed with painting the secondary hull. So I can put my first coat of, I can put another coat of primer off of this after I mask this off. I can put another coat of primer on here, and once that additional coat of primer is on, then I can go back in and start painting my dark coat. Then using Mr. Lou Del Maso Aztec Dummy Mask, after the dark coat is on, I can mask this off, and it's pretty elaborate actually from what I was seeing in the details. We'll go through that in a second. I'll go through the masking, and then that'll be prepared. Once the masking is on, then I can paint it with the top coat, and then I'm going to assemble it. Once I'm at top coat level, then I can assemble it and then spray it with gloss coats. But the top coat, I mean just this. If you look at what Lou's got here, basically he already painted the hull with a light metallizer and then taped it off. The top coat would be the coat of paint that goes over these masks and gives you the whole coating for what you're looking at there. So I've done a mask before from Lou. They're awesome. I'm anxious to see how these refits turn out, especially how they turn out on the hull, secondary hull rather, because I think those are going to look great. And then finally, he added in these optional pieces, and I think I'm going to use some of those for the nacelles, because they're really not not done that way, but they could use some two-toning or Aztecing, if you will. So that is the secondary hull, and that's lit. And that was a huge. Oh, let's show you one more thing. That was a huge project to get all that to fit in there and feed wires through and go. So one more very cool thing that I'm very pleased with. This is the back of the deflector dish, and the deflector dish fits in there like the traditional one does. But what I did is I used a Raytheon, so that blue actually lights up. So now what I'm going to do is pull this apart a little bit, because it's not been glued yet. Pull it apart and then tape this off. Tape off that centerpiece, and I think tape off that one ridge. If I can point to it carefully here. I think tape off this one ridge all the way around here on top. I'm not sure, but I'll have to work on this a little bit. But I can tape that off, and then once that's taped off, then I can come back and spray the hull color over the rest of it. Maybe a little gold around here, like is on the traditional, at TOS. Maybe there. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the original TOS to do this. But so that is going to be the deflector dish, and what should happen is that that's just a transparent blue over unprimed plastic. I had that deflector dish was not light blocked or anything. So once I've got that taped off now, I can go ahead and spray that with the hull color, or install it and spray it, either way. But I think I want to get tape or paint on top of some of that, so I'm going to pull it back out and spray it with the hull color. And then once that's completed, we are off to the races at that point, because it's going to be excitement time, because the secondary hull will be done and masked and ready to install into the primary hull. So that's the wiring, and I'm pleased with the way that turned out, even though it looks like a rat's nest. It really isn't bad. You've kind of seen this before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this is the upper primary hull with the pylons. And these lights, there's not a lot of lights in the top, but there are a few. So I've got lights that are going into the navs and the blinkers, 3 blinkers on the top. And then we've got the red and green, and then we've got white lights that are shining out over these landing pads over there. And then the rest of this will be lit up from the bottom of the hull, which the bottom of the hull is, I'm actually pretty excited about this. So I want to pull this back a little bit and show you what I'm actually done here, because I worked really hard on this particular small model at neatening up my wires. I know it maybe doesn't quite look like it, but frankly, for me, I'm excited the way that this turned out, quite honestly. So I'm going to move those around to the bottoms, and we're going to talk about what's up here. Kind of the same thing. So I've got lights that are going over the landing bays, red and green navs, and then white flashers on the top, or on the bottom rather, okay? So we'll have 2 flashers on the bottom. That's what this small wiring is here around this particular section. Then I took LED 5 volt LED bright white power strip, and I did a couple of things. So one, this isn't really glued down. I can pry that up a little bit. It's not glued down yet, and this is not glued down yet. So this is going to be this is going to be power that comes in from the secondary hull, and it's going to feed into those two right there. Okay, then that power goes all the way around at 5 volt, and from there I can connect my impulse engine lights, which are blue, and I can connect my 2 wires coming in from the nacelles, all from that, hopefully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a couple of leads off of this, one red, one black, and then hook in my 4 more wires that have to be hooked in. So it's both of the impulse engines and both of the nacelles. But I've got enough wire on the nacelle, I can bring it down, bring it forward, and bring that into this. I think I'm going to try to wire it into this section right here. I think that's where I've got the most space. And then same thing here, I can bring this in. So I'm just going to bring one lead off of here, and then I'll have 4 reds tied into that and 4 blacks tied into that, and then the main power coming into that one there, and that should light up most of this. It won't light up my navs yet because I have to connect those to the other piece, and I might do a splice off of the red coming in before I get to here, and then that would run, the splice would run the nav lights, and then I've got my other set of wires coming in that'll run the blinkers, and so those should all work. So that is the lower hull, and my base has been painted. I'm gonna do a reveal at the end because I'm really kind of excited the way that turned out. The base is painted into the paint booth. It's done. I just have to go, drill the holes and put the piping in, or the base post in to hold this and the NX-01 and a guest star. And I'm trying to be kind of cagey on that too. The guest star of the show is going to show up at the reveal. So until then, it's kind of where we're at. We're just about ready to put the wiring away. One more evening here, and that's what I'm going to do next. Put the wiring away, put all the resistors away, and even put this away for right now, because I've already got everything except for the base wired in. So we're going to wire this up the rest of the night, and then do some light tests. Probably going to let it burn in overnight, and then when it burns in overnight, tomorrow I will close up the hull for good, and then seal it up, and then go to the taping and painting. So that is kind of a long-winded update for the NX-01 and the NX-01 Refit here in number 4. As we get started on this update number 4, I'm going to do all of this, I think, in maybe a 4th and 5th update, and then a reveal, maybe this 4th update, and then a reveal. Depends how things go. But once we get to the painting, things might slow down a little bit, because I want to take a little more time with this one and do as good a job as I can at this point. So until then, stay with me. We will be back with more finished wiring, and probably at the burn-in stage. Thank you. All right, hey, welcome back to the Sloppy Modeler, and welcome back to the NX-01 Refit. I want to give you just a quick update of what we've accomplished, what the next steps are, and I'm pretty pleased with a couple of things. So first of all, this was the old secondary hull from the original NX-01 kit that I didn't use, and I tried a couple of samples, and this was the first one with JN gray, and then watered down with some pearl, and I just didn't like the high contrast there. And then I worked towards this one here, much nicer. So still has a base of JN gray, got a bit of slight green tint to it, but you can see that where I taped it off, you've got definitely a change. So that is the first attempt, but I didn't like the paint. So now I've moved to, this is JN gray with pearl, and some titanium in it, and that's kind of the mix, and it was kind of mixed to eye. And I did get this first nacelle, both of these nacelles painted, and this is the dark color, and then I have a version of this that is much lighter. And now I've gone and started with Lou Dalmaso's Aztec dummy mask, and essentially what I've got is just masked off where these would be a panel, and then ready to go into the much lighter paint, and that'll be next for that. So those are the nacelles. Using my fine line applicator, fine tip from Hobby Lobby, filled with my the detailer liquid mask, so it's actually able to work pretty nice. I originally sprayed the interior of this unprimed part, so this is the front of the secondary hull. I just sprayed my transparent blue in there, clear blue, a couple, 2 or 3 coats, and then I laid in 2 coats of this fine line applicator. So that is now dried overnight, and now what I'll do is I'll paint the overall light hull color over this, which then will be ready to snap in. Once that's in, I can peel that off. It's blue underneath. Hopefully there's a Raytheon effect that'll give me a nice blue behind the deflector dish, and that's going to be painted copper on the deflector dish. And then I'd also like to outline these edges with copper. I'm not sure I can get that pulled off, but I'll give it a shot. So that is kind of the deflector dish. You've seen the impulse engines. That's ready for that's been light blocked with black. So now it's ready for a coat of the overall hull color as well. So we're on progress there. The primary hull has been wired, and now we're ready just to, as soon as that's dry with the secondary hull color, I'm going to go ahead and attach it here and then wire it in bottom only. I'm not going to wire in the tops yet, and then I can come in through the secondary hull. So I've got to go to work on getting a first coat on the secondary hull, and then a second coat on the nacelles, tape off the secondary hull with Lou's mask, and get a coat of paint on it. And then once that is done, then I can come back in, and what I can do is I can put in the secondary hull, and I might actually spray this bottom with my dark before I get much further down the road, but with at least 1 coat of dark gray, so that I've got that underway. So once this is sprayed to bottom here, then I can take and attach the secondary hull, which attaches here. Attaches here to here, very, very tiny. And then I can then have that taped off with Lou's mask, have the top off so I can wire everything up, and then I can set this down in and then set in my nacelles. So it's a bit of a wrestling match to get it all done, but I think I'm on the right track. My deflector background looks pretty good. The dish background looks pretty good. Now maybe it's a sensor background, but that'll light up really nice when we come to it. So for now, this is kind of where we're sitting with paint, wiring, and so forth. And now that I've got a process in paint, I think we're in good shape. So I will leave it there. Stay with me. When I come back, you'll see some paint on the secondary hull. You'll see a fresh coats of paint on the nacelles, and maybe even our first coat of paint on the bottom of the primary saucer. So for that, we will see you soon. Thanks. All right, so welcome back. You didn't go anywhere, I guess I did, but welcome back. Wanted to bring you up to speed on the secondary hull. So this has been painted with my dark base coat, and then I've put Lou's mask on here, which actually looked pretty dynamite. I have to give him credit. He's a master extraordinaire at what he does. So we've got kind of the strong back, if you will, the Aztecing here up on the top. The neck is ready to go, and then on the bottom, kind of same thing. You're going to have some nice Aztecing here on this round barrel of the hull, and then of course across this area. This is a la esque of the original series here, a little bit. So the masks go on really nice. Just take your time. Essentially, that's what you're left with when you're all said and done. Don't forget these tiny little corners here and here. I almost didn't get those put on, and that's going to show right there. and right there, and I think that's just as, oh, I missed one right there, final touches, right? So I'll put that on before we go, but always check your work, as they say. So anyway, good progress on this. On the secondary hull, I'm sorry, primary hull, we have also made progress. So I have my first coat of paint here, dark paint on the bottom of this, because I want to be able to tie in these nacelles here after a bit, which I've done. This is actually ready. I'm not going to paint any more on this until I close up the hull, but I wanted to do that so that this would file in much nicer. And then my Aztecing came out really nice on the nacelles. Now I've gone too dark with this color scheme here, so I'm going to paint over that and then return with a lighter gray. But I wanted this reminiscent of the original series, again moving towards it. And I'll say this about this color here on the bottom. This is a personal mix that I did with titanium, mother of pearl, and JN gray, and I'm absolutely totally enamored with that, because it's got not only that gray of our painted lady gray, but it also has a shimmer to it, a metallic shine to it. And that is exactly what I was hoping for. So that is awesome. Now that's the bottom base coat. The top coat here has got the same thing, and but it's lighter. Anyway, much progress on that. All of my nacelles are wired in. The next step, and here's why I'm waiting. So I want to get this painted with the overall base coat, or overall top coat. I want to get that painted so that I can then attach this to the bottom of the hull and bring my wiring up. Once I've got the wiring up, I can pop this section off. I know that's ugly, but it'll get cleaned up. But I can pop this section off, wire it, and then put the top coat on, or top piece on, and then start sealing up the hull. But until I had this painted, because I wanted to be able to make sure I could get in here with all of those different, especially up in here and in the neck and so forth, with all of that different color, because I knew it would be too close inside of the underneath the hull there. So let me get this secondary painted up, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to leave the mask on, and then we'll put this into the bottom of the primary hull, wire it in with these external wires here. And really all I've got there is one wire for light and one wire for the blinking navigation anti-collision lights. Anti-collision lights only, not navs. The navs aren't going to blink. So let me go to work on that, and when I come back we should see this painted, and we'll see what else we got. Thank you.
Alright, hey, welcome back. So I've got the primary hull is out of, the secondary hull is out of paint where I'm at this, the top coat has been done, and now I am working on these masks to pull them off. And so far it's actually gone pretty nice. I haven't had any peel ups of the other paint, which I was kind of pretty concerned about, not knowing how hard that paint mix was, how hard it dries, and whether I went too soon on this. So again, using my nice little tweezers. These are actually fantastic because they've got a super sharp point, but they're just rounded just the right way, and so if I can get to it, plus they're the reverse style, which means you got to push to open them, and it seems to me that that works really nice again in this kind of environment. And if you need to have a little more pressure, you can hold it together and then pull it. And then I noticed that there's a paint line, obviously, because the paint is thicker. Just by rubbing my hand over it, it kind of eliminates that to a large degree. And the reason I'm pulling this off is that I need to install it. I need to put it against the bottom of the hull, right? The primary hull. However, I've got to make sure that I can decal this later on, and there's a couple of decals on the bottom of the primary hull that I'm going to have to do. And that is, and to do this against this paint is going to be a challenge because it's fairly flat. It's highly flat. So I'm going to need to put a coat of clear on this, clear gloss on this, in order to put the decals on. So it's definitely a build order that is pretty challenging just to get this all figured up. But let me first express my kudos to Mr. Lou Dalmaso. The kudos that he definitely did a great job on these masks. And any challenges that I have are strictly due to my inability, not the masks themselves. But you're seeing, I just wanted just such a nice subtle difference. I didn't want like a checkerboard difference in color. I just wanted just a slight difference. And the way I've accomplished this, I think, when I mix my paint up, I started with the dark base coat, and I mixed up quite a bit of it, like probably double and a half of what I would need, right? And then once that I was really satisfied with the base coat color, I was then able to come back and just add some white and some pearl. And it didn't change the tone, it just changed the shade. So the color's the same, but the shade is different. And I'm also really thrilled that the base coat has a metallic sheen to it that the top coat doesn't have. Top coat doesn't quite is much flatter, but there's really a metallic sheen to the base coat there. And you know, like I said, so this has been really having these masks on here dynamite the way that it turned out. Let me pull these next two here, and then we will take a break from filming. But I wanted to show you my process for getting these up, hopefully without tearing up my paint too badly. So there's the bottom of the hull, of the secondary hull, and I'll just say I'm super thrilled with the way that is turned out. So what I'm going to do is I'll continue to peel these pieces off here. I'm going to unmask. This has this mask here on the deflector dish base. I've got liquid mask in there, so hopefully that'll peel up. We'll see. Peel off the rest of these masks, and then I've got the tops to do. But I wanted to show you just again using these tweezers, and I think I got these at like Big Lots, you know, for $1. But again, with that sharp point on there, it makes a huge amount of difference of how nice that turns out, and then being able to peel that off. So $1 well spent, I guess, is what I would say. And more here. So normally if I could get to this, I would leave this on until I had a lot more progress, but I've got to put a clear coat over this, and I didn't want a clear coat over the mask because I think that that would really, there's my email dinging in. If I clear coated over the mask, I really felt that that would be really hard for them to peel these up effectively. Plus I'm hoping the clear coat will even out, will flow out and even out the rest of the paint lines, so it doesn't look like you've got, you know, multiple depth to the paint, but rather just it's all one hull. And then last one here. And I guess we got two up here. Okay, so for me, I'm thrilled. I think that this looks absolutely dynamite, and so now I got to pull off. I've pulled the ones off the neck, and like I said, the next step would be to pull the ones off of the back here, and I think there's a couple more like on the pylons. So let me go at that, and I'll be back with you. Thank you. All right, welcome back. It is exciting times here at the Sloppy House due to the fact that I was finally able to get this hull closed up, and now we're on to paint. So let me just give you a quick overview of what is in and working and what might be a little bit problematic. So all the lights that I have in there, except one, are working. I think I lost my blue light in there, and I am also suspecting that my light blocking on this rear anti-collision light is going to blink, and it's going to blink inside that crystal. So that is unfortunate, highly unfortunate, because I thought I had that completed and done. When we're lit up here, the nacelles are not glued on yet. That's going to be one of the next things I do. But I can see that I've got my Bassard collector, both of my blue lights, and my red light on the port side. My Bassard collector, both of my blue lights are lit, and my green light on the starboard are in and done. Secondary hull has lights in it, and then still on the top though, I have my anti-nav lights. 3 of those are and those are really bright, so those will be cool when they double blink. The red and the green are in, and then I actually have the lights here over these landing pads are done on the top. On the bottom, very simple, we now have our my green and white on the starboard side, and I have my landing pad light is here, and that's much diffused with paint over it, which is good. I'm all right with that. And then on the port side, red and white, those are ready to go. And then on the bottom, I've got my blinky here, my anti-collision light, and I've got nice light coming through here in the bottom where I can, even though it's blue, I'm going to paint that clear piece green. And what I think I have to do is there's a piece that goes into this rear nacelle, and I'm going to drill through it, fill it with microcrystal clear, and then paint over that with clear green. It might take 2 or 3 coats, but I think that's going to look great. Same thing down here, so that's kind of a happy accident, as we say. I'm really pleased with the neck. There's no light bleeds or anything coming through on the neck. The nacelle pylons have come together really nice, and even back here where the fit is the worst, we're pretty close. I've got a little bit of puttying to do around these rear nacelles. I haven't peeled up the liquid mask that I have covering those, so hopefully that you won't see any blue coming through around the edges, and it'll just be gray, and then we can pop that in and have blue coming through the nacelles. Same thing here, I've got it covered on both of the impulse engines. Those don't light up so well, but that's okay. And then I've got lighting done over the top of those.
So on the bottom, 100% credit to the Aztec Dummy paint mask, and I really like that combination of Aztecing. The color is spot on for what I was going for. Right now, this has a gloss coat on it. As soon as I get the decals on the bottom, that'll be a while yet. I'll put a flat coat on that, and that will change that up. Now we're ready to paint the top with the dark base coat, and I got to tape off this so that we don't get paint all over the existing work. But you know, even on the sides here, this time it came through so much nicer that there's virtually no light leaks at all coming through that side, and that was the case the last time. So very excited about this fit this time. Maybe it was a little more care and time and patience came together, but I'm pretty excited about that. Once I've got the base coat on, we'll let that dry and harden, and then we will go back. Like I said, I used the top and the hull here from Lou's paint mask, and and I still have some of these here for some other pieces. And then the next step, of course, is going to be the bottom piece right here. This is the bottom, I'm sorry, this is the top of the hull, and this has the larger pieces, but I think I'm going to be fine with that. I think it's going to be dynamite, honestly. And once we get that on, we'll then spray it with the coat of the light top coat, and let that harden up, pull that, gloss it, and we're ready for decals. So much progress and much excitement as to where we're at. I think once this gets a dull coat on the bottom of that, that's going to be just exactly where I wanted it. So for now, we're going to leave you with that, and when we come back to you, we'll have the top of this painted and ready for the Aztecing, and we'll show you that as we go. So for now, we'll talk to you again in a bit. Thank you. All right, hey, welcome back. We are out of the paint booth with our top coat. Nope, I'm sorry. Our dark base coat over the top of the Enterprise NX-01 Refit. We've got the hull glued in place, and we have gone forward and light blocked all of the light leaks that were in there. So in the dark, this really looks solid, sealed up, and so forth. So our next step is to then take the masking set that Lou provided and go ahead and start masking this. Now this is really it's really pretty easy to do once you've got your base coat down and you know where you want to start. I typically do a couple of things when I'm working on this. I like setting the orientation of the mask photo with the orientation of what I'm working on, and then again, using just my tweezers here, you can come in and pull up a piece off of the mask, and then the very first piece is the very first challenge, right? And the key is here to get this into a place. And with that secondary hull, it's a little more challenging to place this exactly where you might want it. And I think that is exactly where we're at right there. And notice that I use my little thumbnail to push that down into that first vent. And so as you just go around the Boy, that's really awkward to hold that. And once you get kind of where you want it, you can grab it and set it into place. So this is probably the more tedious portion of this masking, but once you kind of get a rhythm going, and once you kind of get it figured out what you like, don't like, You can see that it does go on fairly quick. Alright, so again, just kind of working my way around the paint mask and just following the diagram here of what he's got and where everything comes together, and just tracking on doesn't that look, oh, I think he's got, okay. Alright, so let's try this a little differently. I think what he's done is just like that. Essentially what I'm doing, I'm leaving just a little bit of edge there around the grid lines. And then this piece here comes in right at that angle. Like so. And I'm not quite down far enough, so we're gonna move that down. Oh yeah, that's gonna look better. Good, 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 good. So again, it's just a matter of pulling up your mask. And like I said, I really like these tweezers for doing this. It seems to do a pretty decent job. And a bit of it is just kind of lining up with your eye what you like to see or would like to see, and then putting the overall aesthetic versus trying to follow. Now, I will say this, it looks like his photo versus what I'm seeing in the mask are just slightly different in size. So you're going to have to work through that. Yeah. And sometimes on these little tiny parts, it helps to grab your knife or whatever you want to use there and kind of move that into shape. Just press it with your thumb a little bit. And there you go. So I'm going to keep working away on this. And what you can see is that some of these do span more than one. They do span more than one grid line. So when that happens, I just use my little pointer there, and what you'll want to do is maybe even a toothpick or something that's got a little bit of an edge to it, that you can drive that down into the grid line, because otherwise you're going to have paint that's going to bleed underneath it. So you want to make sure that you kind of lock that down. So just using whatever you've got. Like I said, some people use a toothpick. There are other items that'll work, but essentially you can push that right down into the grid line where you see fit. And like I said, because you don't want that to bleed under, just a little bit of a push like so will keep that from happening. And I didn't use a lot of pressure there, just enough to seat it. And you know, we're not going to drown this in paint. It's just a quick top coat when it comes together. So definitely pushing towards just a nice gentle pressure here. So you can see in a span of about 5 or 6 minutes, you can actually get quite a bit of the hull done in a short period of time. And then maybe once you got them in, might be time to do just a little bit of a fine tune. You might have to pick some up, put some down, change it around a little bit. But the key is that you want your spacing between the panels to be fairly uniform. I think if you manage that, then you're only about 10 minutes to go ahead and lay in the center portion of the paint mask here. Like I said, just by orientating the mask with the model with the diagram, it seems to work pretty good. So I've got all of this portion done here. I'm not going to mask these off because there's some really nice decals that go there, so I don't want that over a darker color, quite honestly. But now what's left is just to come down these sides, right from here out to the back and there. So this goes really, really fast compared to like doing like a big 350 scale Enterprise refit or something like that. Not a ton of mass, they're just tiny, but they do come off really well, and hopefully it looks like we're going to have a nice result as we come through this. But quite honestly, this is just really nice to work with these, and once you kind of get your rhythm and figure it out, you can lay on a mask pretty quickly, and especially, like I said, if you got the right tools. Now I've been using these tweezers, and they seem to work really fantastically. Now I got to get my orientation right on that one. And again, you are kind of just eyeballing this, and anywhere that we've got a grid line, you're going to want to recess that pretty quickly so that you don't get paint running underneath it. And you might want to make sure that your paint is a little thicker than what you would normally put on it, and just to make sure that you're not going to get yourself in trouble. And what I would recommend, if you go up against a grid line here, then I would go up against it the whole way, just for uniformity's sake. And I will give credit again on the masks themselves. This is a series of really weird shapes and sizes. especially on something like this right here, to where you're going to want to figure out, do you want to run that edge up against the ridge line? And I think I don't. I think I do, actually. And if I run that up, now this was kind of pulled and twisted coming off the vinyl, so you want to make sure that you can kind of get that back into shape just like that. And again, coming back across here on my ridge lines just to make sure that I don't have any paint bleeding underneath that. But that is, you know, first of all, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. And if you've done any taping of your apartment or your house trying to paint, then this, you know exactly what we're dealing with here. So this one, I'm going to run that ridge right up to So there you go. That is quarter of the section done. And he does include, there are pieces here, quite a few extra little pieces here in the grid lines. You can't necessarily, I'll pull one up here so you can see it. A whole bunch of these little blocks. Maybe pull one up. Yeah, a whole bunch of these little blocks that if you wanted to do, you know, something like on a nacelle or something, that's your option. Which I'm going to do some of that because this doesn't have any Aztecing per se, but the hull detail is really pronounced. I did some on the lower section there that you can see that are different colors, so I'm going to do the same thing up here, maybe along some of these stretches, just to give a little bit of variety to the color in the back. Like I said, there are two really nice decals that go here and here, here and here, so I'm not going to do that that particular mask that would show up right there. I'm going to do that with decal instead. But you know, you can see here we've been at this for 15-20 minutes tops, and it goes on really quick, easy. Again, just eyeballing and spacing. It's not perfect, never will be, but it's still a darn sight better than what I could do without Lou's mask, the Aztec Dummy masking set for this 1000 refit. And he does include those in the level 3 or version 3. He does include those for the secondary hull. So let me go back to work. So since you last left it, we've made some very quick progress here. So essentially what you're seeing here is this side has been painted, and well, it's all been painted, but this is still with the mask applied. Here I've already removed the mask on the side, and there's a few parts where it's has been pulled up, but essentially to pull these masks off, it's just the same process almost of pulling them off the sheet originally. Just want to make sure that you point your sharp edge up instead of pointing it down towards the model, and trying definitely to be careful how you pick at this. So now I will say this, that combination of Martha Stewart's titanium, pearl, and some Tamiya let's see, let me get my right number here. JN gray, and that's a lot greener. There's still quite a bit of green in this, but that combination of paint has dried really fast, and it's dried really hard. So I'm not having any trouble with paint peel up or lift up with the mask here. I think that Lou is kind of dead on when it comes to the tackiness of this vinyl, and I give him full kudos that, because it sticks nice, but yet it pulls up. As you can see, it pulls up nice and leaves very little of what I would call a big paint line. And you can minimize that yourself by spraying a lighter coat on this rather than a heavy coat of paint, especially over the top of that. If you've already got a base, all you have to do is kind of tint the next color out there, but still using some care and precision to pull all of this up. But for me, I think it's dynamite. So you can see here that we've got a nice contrast on the dark portion versus this lighter top coat. That's really a dynamite contrast. And then once I get all these peeled off, I'm actually going to go right back to the paint booth and do a coat of clear over this. I like this X22 clear from Tamiya. It builds up nice and gives you an excellent gloss. You can see the gloss here underneath. It gives you an excellent gloss on which to decal. And so that is kind of the next step after this, is to get a gloss coat on the top. And once the gloss coat is in, then it's a matter of doing the detail painting, everywhere that you need to do the gold painting. Do the detail painting, clean up any of the lights or lines or anything like that need to be done. And then once all the detail painting is done, get the decals on it. And I don't know if I'm going to use a wash on these lines. I might. We'll have to see. They come out pretty nice when you got them here, but I think they would look even better with a wash. So we'll see as we come to that. And but for now, we're just going to continue our little process here of pulling up the mask. And again, I like just a light touch, and there you go. You can see how easily those masks come up. Now, granted, they've only been on for about 3 or 4 hours or so, but for me, that's enough to get the paint on it and then get ready to peel it back off. So let me go back to work, and when we come back, we will have a gloss coat over this. Thanks. Okay, hey, welcome back. We are out of paint booth with our gloss coat attached. Welcome back here to the NX-01 Refit. And we are fast approaching the mounting phase here, but the next step is to decal the lower hull. I like doing the lower hull first, and just to work with the decals, that way if they screw up, they're typically not seen when it's on display. I've gone through and fixed any of the little tiny remaining light leaks, and now we have to do a couple of things. We have to lay in a color here on that particular gray, or that grill. Same thing on this side, same thing there. That's going to be really difficult to paint now that I see that. Really difficult to paint, so we'll have to see what we do there. But that needs to be painted. I'm probably going to paint that a light gray. I'm going to do a steel color here on these edges here, just to give a call back to the NX-01, just on a couple of touches there. And then we've got our gold to paint in here, re-gold up the pieces that are in the nacelles. We've got to put up, I've got a whole series of parts over here to put in. One thing that is done is this lower sensory dome, planetary sensor dome. Very, very excited about the way that turned out. I painted that was a clear piece, but I painted it with champagne, and now I've put it in place. And it's got the right shimmer, it's got the right look, and it lights up really nice when the lights come on. Not a bright white, but a shimmering gold, if you will. So it was exactly what I was hoping and looking for. So we've got quite a bit of little finished detail and work to go through. I'm not going to peel off these liquid mask on the impulse engines until we are ready for the dull coat, because I want those bright and shiny if at all possible. And I did go back through and reopen my windows with my little drill. Opened up a lot of the windows that maybe had paint fill in, and so that has really brought the light to the surface. And I think once I get the microcrystal clear in those, and it's not going to take much, and it's going to be actually kind of a challenge to get it into those small holes, but I think once those are in, we're going to be off and running as well there. So let me go to work on this, and when we come back we will have some decals on the bottom and maybe even some detail painting started. Talk to you soon.
All right, so we're going to walk through the bottom decals, what's in place actually. So had a lot of success here. The bottom of the hull is all done, the secondary hull. These red stripes actually went on really nice for a change there. And then we've got those, whatever they're called, side by sides. They go in really nice. I did move them forward just to give a better lay on those. And then all of my striping is in. And this has all had a coat of micro sol, but again I had a couple of nice options. This time I was able to cut these two pieces aside first before I put it on, and that made a big difference. And just definitely a nice set of decals over the landing pads. That worked out really nice. On top, we actually have our decal here that's on the very back, and for approach apparently, and then a new one there and a red pinstriping on that piece. One of the things that I ran into last time was this particular piece here. I went ahead and took my scalpel knife and really came right down to the color on this, taking away all the carrier film, because it's a really, really tight fit on the back end of that. Super tight fit to get that to go in. And so I think by doing this, it'll give me a little bit of better option of being able to have that conform to the location a little better. So I'm going to continue some decaling. I'm going to work on some more of this, and when I'm back, you'll see that the top decals will be done, and then we'll be ready to go to flat coat at some point. So stay with me. All right, hey, more progress here on the NX-01. Just ran into a little bit of a hiccup, and it was my own fault. I should have thought through it. Working on this side pennant here. This USS Enterprise actually would go down onto the lower hull, but there's too much of a lip. So fortunately, like I said, I had two versions of this available, two versions of the decal sheet available. So I was able to grab another SS Enterprise. So when this dries, I'll trim that off and then put this SS Enterprise down. The other one that's a real challenge is this pennant across the nacelle. For some reason they've got this raised feature. Next time I would just take my scalpel or my chisel and just flatten that out. It adds really nothing to it, except it's a big giant pain in the ass to do a decal over it. So that's going to take a lot of microsol to knock that down. We do have the decals across the whole top, but we've got a lot of microsol to go and work in them. They're excellent decals, I'll give them that, but there's just more work to go on this. Down to 4 decals left to put on it. We got one on the back right here behind the big shuttle or landing pad. It's not the shuttle bay, but behind the landing pad. That gets this Enterprise 5A. and then we've got the pennant on the other side for the hull, the pennant on the other side for the nacelle, and then this SS Enterprise will be replaced with that one right there. And that will be the last of the decaling, and then we can get into a flat coat. Once the flat coat is done, then I'm going to go in with all of my little pieces of detail, like that goes on the front of the nacelle, Bassard collector, the top of the bridge gets painted. So that's all got to be painted yet. I've got to paint the deflector dish, the front sensor dish, the side chiller grills here that go on the inside. So there's more work to be done, but decals are almost there. I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, let this dry up actually for probably an hour, a couple hours, and then I'll come back to it and make some more progress with the last of these 4 decals. But again, on this one here for the other side, I'm going to trim off the SS Enterprise, just do the pennant, and then after the pennant's on, go back and do that little tiny SS Enterprise, because it just won't fold and fit over the contours of this particular model. Other than that, of course, these decals go on fantastic, and I'm excited about what this is going to look like in the end. But we'll just keep working at it here, and we'll come back with you shortly. Thank you.
All right, hey, welcome back to the Sloppy Modeler. You didn't go anywhere, I did, but we are fast approaching our conclusion here on the update number 4 of the NX-01 and NX-01 Refit. It's been kind of a fun little run to see some of these new techniques and so forth come to a conclusion, so very excited about that. We have looked at basically the opportunity, let me just get my camera adjusted here a little bit, to paint in all of the gold and to glue in the bridge dome and the front deflector dish, the bottom deflector dish, put in the crystals, and added in, you know, our spikes here on the front, and got some of the touch-up paints done. So we are almost there. I really like this flat aluminum that went on right there, and I think I might just come back and do flat aluminum here on these ridges, and maybe a little bit of detail paint work right there. But we'll leave that up to timing and pulling this together. So still very excited about how this has come together. I'm absolutely thrilled with the color. I really love the fact that this has got just a light metallic sheen underneath that the darker gray, with that mixing in a little titanium into the paint and a little pearl into the paint, and then finally using that lacquer flat lacquer from Model Masters to do the base flat coat. And you know, that just left, in my opinion, just the right amount of sheen on this. And I don't like using flat coat over the gold, so I like painting that in as the last resort there. But for the most part, very excited. I think this is going to look dynamite with base. I'm working on the base right now in the paint booth, and on the base it's going to include this NX-01 here, and the other NX-01, the original, and the NX-01 Refit will go onto that. And then, like I said, and I'm still being very cagey, we've got a really nice guest appearance for that as well. So for right now, this is going to conclude update number 4. You know, I know that you guys could be anywhere else in the world doing anything else, but you've spent this last couple hours with me on this project, and I thank you for that. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps me, it helps the channel, it helps the Google algorithms to direct more people to it, and I appreciate that tremendously. And I'm just going to continue to try to bring work as I do it here to the public, and just, you know, if you can learn something, and I learn something every time I do one of these, if you can learn something, that's great. You know, it's definitely gratifying in that regard. Hope to help is really the key. You can always reach me via Messenger, of course, and in the comments. Please comment on anything you think that I could do better. I'm always willing to learn, of course. I appreciate the opportunity that you give me to bring this to the public. So with that, I'm going to bring this this episode 4 to a close. Go out, stay safe, stay healthy, love your loved ones, love your neighbor, and we will see you in the reveal. And if you want to see the reveal and know when it comes out, go ahead and hit that bell so you get notified when when that reveal is going to come out. So until then, we'll see you soon. Thanks.